Yesterday, we were studying till where? We studied till stomach, no? We were studying till stomach.
No, we completed our steps.
Actually, we completed till large intestine. That means we completed with the alimentary canal. Now we're going to start with the digestive glands. We are going to start with digestive glands. So yesterday we completed till here. Now let us start with nobody's online. So first of all, we are going to start with the glands. That is, we'll start with salivary glands. We are going to start with salivary glands. What are we going to start today? We are going to understand digestive glands. So yesterday, what did we study? We studied alimentary canals. उनको देख के भक्ति कितना थोड़ा देर भक्ति कितनी सैड फील कर रही है उनको देख के देखो सच अ बिग स्माइल ऑन हर फेस हाँ और अनीश कल तुम आराम से घर में सोफा में बैठ के तुम क्लास करते हो ऐसे कैसी जो भी है सोफा है बेड है जमीन जो भी तुम घर से बैठ के क्यों क्लास कर रहे थे एक्चुअली मैं आज भी ऑनलाइन ही करने वाला क्या मजा है कि ऑनलाइन तुम करोगे और ये लोग क्या बुद्धू है जो ये लोग क्लास पे आके पढ़ते हैं मैम ना इतनी मेहनत करो जो ऑनलाइन भी कर रहे हो एक्सेलेंट मैम कोई लोग तो छुट्टी पे थी हमारा जो लोग आराम कर रहे हैं उसके साथ तो मैं बात ही नहीं कर रही तुम इतना पास में रहते हो इधर नहीं था Now, yesterday we completed. आप क्या पूछ रहे हो? क्या पूछ रहे हो? इतना दूर क्यों? वो अपने मौसी के घर गया था। तुमको क्या प्रॉब्लम है? तुम भी जाओ ना। साथ चाचा मौसी मामा वही करते रहो पढ़ाई तो करो नहीं कभी ये जा रहे हैं तुम जा रहे हो और कहीं जाना बाकी है नहीं वो भी प्लान कर लो अभी एग्जाम के पहले तो फ्रेश हो गए पहले पढ़ाई कौन करता है अभी जो भी बाकी हॉलीडेज है एग्जाम के पहले एक बार जाके फ्रेश हो जाओ हाँ ओके उसके बाद देखेंगे एग्जाम होता है तो ठीक एग्जाम तो होते ही रहते हैं ना उसके बाद देखेंगे मूड हुआ तो लिखेंगे नहीं तो छोड़ देंगे क्या फर्क पड़ता है जागो yesterday we completed with alimentary canal. I'm going to ask you 10 questions. Let's see how much you all have understood the concept yesterday. Yesterday we completed with parts like stomach, the primary parts of the alimentary canal like the stomach, small intestine. Stomach and small intestine are the major parts of the alimentary canal. So the 5 distinct parts are the mouth, esophagus, then stomach, small intestine, large intestine. What are the 3 parts of the small intestine I told you? First, what is the first part? Duodenum, jejunum, ileum. What is that process which allows the food to pass through the entire alimentary canal? Huh? Peristalsis. Define the peristalsis. What did I give you the definition of peristalsis?
The contraction and dilation of walls of alimentary canal.
That is called peristalsis. What is the special feature of the ileum? Did you go through that part? Did you ask Ashika yesterday what has been taught in the class? Which the is a topic. Should I ask you questions? I think I should not. When we are talking about, go through this part, we're already completed now. Then we were talking about the juice produced by the stomach wall. What is the juice produced by the stomach wall known as? Entire term, three different components form a particular juice. I named it. What was the name of that juice that is produced by the stomach wall with three different components? Gastric juice. Very good. Gastric juice. So what is the composition of gastric juice now? HCl, pepsin, and mucus. What was the function of HCl?
HCl function was to break down.
HCl's function was
Activating pepsin.
वो तो last function है जो लिखते हैं. The first important two functions what I asked you to write. Activating pepsinogen to pepsin. And number two,
an acidic medium in the stomach.
Creating acidic medium in the stomach so that protein digestion go by. So these are the 2 points that you have to write. And killing germs, that's a third point. If at all you get a 3-mark question, that's not a very, very important point to be mentioned. Then we were talking about villi, and I asked you 2 questions also to write on that. Villi and villus. So what is the significance of the villi we learned yesterday? Anish. Let me check. When we are talking about villi, you had written one answer also yesterday. What is the significance of the villi and the microvilli I gave you? Significance. तुमने लिखा ना कि तुम्हारी मौसी लिख रही थी तुम्हारे लिए, तुम ही लिख रहे थे, तो इतना तुम्हारा खुद का हैंडराइटिंग पढ़ने के लिए इतना टाइम क्यों लग रहा है? You are not reading any prescription, हाँ? आधा लिखा है. अच्छा, ऑनलाइन है इसलिए आधा आधा करोगे. हाँ, बोल रहे तो खत्म हो गया. Significance of villi. What did we learn yesterday? Ashita, will you be able to tell me what is the significance of the villi that we learned yesterday? Absorption. It increases the surface area, meaning if I have only one big finger, the membrane cover is small. And now I have 5 fingers, the membrane cover is more, no? So that is the concept to understand. When I'm talking about the villus, if the small intestine would have had smooth wall inside, the membrane cover would be a little bit only. But when the entire wall is folded and folded and folded and folded, the membrane is becoming more, no? It is a long membrane which has been compressed by because of the folding. So the membrane is surface area is more. Area is more. As I told you just now, that if we had a big finger like this, the area would have been just 1 square millimeter perhaps, or 1 square centimeter. But now that I talk about 5 fingers, the area would be something around 20 square centimeter or even more. So now the area is becoming more, the surface area is becoming more, no? The membrane is more. Same is the case when you are talking about. Now, what is the significance of that area there? Significance is, it is allowing the diffusion of the molecules. More the membrane, more the diffusion can happen. So that is the concept of absorption we are going to learn. Next is, now we start with the salivary glands. Which are the salivary glands and what are their functions? One by one, let's start. First of all, we talk about the, what are the digestive glands? So first of all, we start with the salivary glands. What are the salivary glands? Their location and what do they release? Salivary glands, when I'm talking about, the first salivary gland is known as the parotid gland. The parotid gland. What is the second gland known as? Submaxillary gland. Submaxillary gland. Then next is the submandibular gland. Next is the submandibular gland. So these three glands that we are talking about, the submaxillary, the submandibular, a submaxillary or the submandibular and the sublingual gland. So now when we are talking about that, these three glands, which are the salivary glands, I told you, one is the parotid gland. Look at the positions. If I talk about the parotid gland is here, where it is here. The parotid glands are here. So sometimes if you try also just pressing this part, you will feel as if small amount of secretion is happening in your mouth. You dry your mouth, you swallow all the saliva. And after that, if you just slowly press this area, you can sense that yes, as if something is getting again, the saliva is coming into your mouth again more. So that's a parotid gland that we have here. Then this is a submaxillary gland. This is actually at the ends of the jaw. It is here actually at the ends of the jaw where the upper and the lower jaw meet. And then we have got the sublingual gland inside our mouth, just below our tongue. Inside our mouth, just below our tongue is the sublingual. So here we are talking about three glands, the parotid gland, the submandibular, the submaxillary, also submandibular, also known as submaxillary. And then we have got the sublingual gland. Now, what are these glands producing? All these three glands collectively produce a secretion known as the saliva. What is the saliva made up of? It has got small amount of water. It has got a particular enzyme known as the salivary amylase. And this salivary amylase basically helps in the digestion of carbohydrate. What is the pH of the saliva? pH, the concentration of hydronium ions that you know. So when we are talking about pH, the pH is something around 7 to 8. That is something alkaline, you know, no? So now that we are talking about the salivary gland. So what is the secretion of the salivary gland known as? The secretion of the salivary gland is known as escape karo. और पे जाओ ना, वो कीबोर्ड में escape करो. Keyboard. इनको क्या करना है?
वो लटकॉन लेना है क्या देखने का?
कौन है ऑनलाइन आ रहा है? वेदांत. इसमें
नहीं हाँ ये आप पार्टिसिपेट इधर आएगा
आएगा तो आने दो उसको, सोने दो उसको, कोई बात नहीं. नहीं आएगा गारंटी. उठाओ अरे वो नहीं है वो इधर. So now when we are talking about this, now that I talk about this, so what I said, what is the secretion of the salivary glands collectively known as saliva, and remember it is alkaline. It is an alkaline secretion. Now this saliva, which is an alkaline secretion, generally helps in the killing of germs also to some extent, and the major role is the digestion of the carbohydrate. Now that I talk about carbohydrate, tell me 5 foods rich in carbohydrate. Wheat, rice, bread, potato. Or the wheat. So now that we are talking about all this variety of grains, now that I talk about the maize and the wheat and the rice, and then now that I talk about any different type of food items such as the fruits also, certain type of fruits also. You know, when we are talking about quite a number of these fruits, say suppose I talk about the mangoes and all these, the mangoes and the pineapple and all these. These are also fruits which actually does not contain glucose basically, but they contain a complex form of the glucose, basically fructose, sucrose, like that. So yes, these are all forms of carbohydrate to understand. These different type of carbohydrates, like if I say suppose, especially if I talk about the bread, the roti, the rice, the maize that we eat, these are in the complex form. The complex form of carbohydrate is known as polysaccharides. So the moment you take a bite of the bread, a spoon of rice, a roti, what happens? That is complex. That is in the complex form, and that has to be broken down in its simplest form. So the moment we eat, the action of the salivary amylase starts on carbohydrate food. So we are going to learn the steps later. So first of all, you have to understand that this salivary amylase that we are talking about is an enzyme present in the saliva, present in the mouth, and it generally helps in the process of carbohydrate digestion. Is there any other enzyme present in the saliva? No, there's no other enzyme present in the saliva. Next is we are talking about the next gland. The next gland is the liver. The liver, the largest gland of the body, when we are talking about the largest gland of the body, the largest gland of the body. And this liver has got specialized types of cells, and these cells are known as the hepatic cells. And these hepatic cells are releasing a specific type of secretion again, and that is what is known as the bile juice. The bile juice. The hepatic cells releases what? The hepatic cells releases the bile juice. Okay. Now, when we talk about the composition of the bile juice, what is the composition of the bile juice? I said the liver is releasing the bile juice, and this bile juice, which is being carried by the liver cells into a specific gland, which does not actually secrete the bile juice but stores the bile juice for a short period of time. So if I talk about this now, see here I'm talking about that this is the entire liver. Where is it located? The liver is located on the right side, just opposite to the stomach, the liver. Now that we are talking about the liver is here, the cells of the liver are constantly producing the bile juice. But this bile juice which has been produced here will be carried by the hepatic ducts. These are the hepatic ducts. And it will go to the gallbladder there. And here in the gallbladder, the secretion, meaning the entire composition of the bile juice gets a little bit modified. Chemical composition change hota hai, little bit modification happens, and then by the way of the cystic duct, followed by the common bile duct, it falls into the duodenum. It will enter into the duodenum here. So now that I talk about the bile juice by the way of the hepatic duct, the bile juice by the way of the hepatic duct will enter into the gallbladder. Remember, whenever you are asked that name the gland which releases bile juice, you are not to write gallbladder. Gallbladder just stores it and modifies it a little bit. Secretion is done by the liver. Then from the gallbladder, by the way of the common bile duct, where will it enter? It will enter into the duodenum. Yesterday, did I tell you anything about why is the duodenum so special, a part of the small intestine? Yes or no? Yesterday, we were discussing that the duodenum is a special region or an important region of the small intestine because it receives the juices from the liver and the pancreas. So this is what the first thing that we are learning now. Now, if I talk about the composition of the bile juice, what is the composition of the bile juice? The composition of the bile juice is, it is made up of the bile salts. It is made up of the bile salts. Number two, it is made up of the bile pigments. What are the bile pigments? The bilirubin and the biliverdin. Bilirubin and biliverdin. So these are the bile pigments that are present in the bile salts. Apart from that, small amount of water. Apart from that, it has got small amount of water and various other salts and ions. Various other salts and ions. So that is the composition of the bile juice that we understand. So this bile juice, does it have any enzyme? Did I write in the composition part? Any enzyme is there? No, remember, the bile juice does not have any enzyme. But the saliva, we had already written one enzyme there, no? So when I'm talking about the bile juice actually does not have any enzyme. And this bile juice basically has got bile salts which help in the process of fat digestion. So in the process of digestion, we are able to learn that. Next is we are talking about the pancreas. The third part, the third gland that we talk about is the pancreas. Look at the figure again to understand. Where is the pancreas? The pancreas is between the stomach and the duodenum. This is the duodenum, no? Between the stomach and the duodenum, we have got the pancreas, a lobed structure, almost the shape of a leaf-like structure, a lobed structure. So the pancreas that we are talking about. Now, this pancreas has got groups of cells known as the acinar cells. Which are what are the acinar cells? The enzyme secreting cells. Or if I write this way, then whenever we are talking about the pancreas, the enzyme secreting cells, what are the enzyme secreting cells? These are known as the acinar cells. These are known as the acinar cells. And what are they releasing? They are releasing the pancreatic juice. The pancreatic juice also is alkaline, remember, when I talk about that, the food which is present in the duodenum is made alkaline. How? The food which is moving, you will learn now in the next concept that we understand. So the food which is moving from the duodenum, the food which is moving from the stomach to the duodenum has to become alkaline so that the steps of digestion can continue. So this is one reason how the food can become alkaline, because of the presence of the pancreatic juice, because of the release of the pancreatic juice. So which gland is releasing the pancreatic juice? The pancreas. What is the composition? If you have to understand, composition of the pancreatic juice is what? Composition of the pancreatic juice, to understand, it has got again small amount of water, small amount of salts, and a variety of enzymes. So enzymes, what are some of the important enzymes that you have to understand that the pancreatic juice contains? It has got the pancreatic amylase. It has got the pancreatic amylase. Then it has got, remember some of them. It has got the trypsin. Then it has got the chymotrypsin. Then it has got the pancreatic lipase, or also known as trypsin, and many more. Many different other type of enzymes are there. So when we are talking about the pancreatic amylase, the trypsin, the chymotrypsin, the pancreatic lipase, or also known as the trypsin. So when I talk about this is a fat digesting enzyme, these are protein digesting enzymes, these are carbohydrate digesting enzymes, etc. So there are a variety of enzymes that the pancreatic juice contains. So here we are talking about the three digestive glands primarily, the three digestive glands, and these three digestive glands constantly release variety of enzymes and secretions so that the process of digestion can be carried out. So once you have followed with this, now next is we are going to understand the process of digestion. Let us now try to understand the process of digestion. The process of digestion. So first, step by step, we have to understand what are the different parts of the alimentary canal where the process of digestion can happen. Complete this progress check first of all, page number 109. Complete this progress check, page 109, page 107. Put off. Take your book, page 109, page 107. I said progress check, page 109, 107 पहले textbook में करो, and then page 115. Complete the questions from this part, and then the process of digestion will move forward. Page 115, textbook answer question number 3. Question number 3. Short answer question C. Answer number 3. Number 4. Number 5. Number 7, already I gave you the answer yesterday. Special features of ileum, I already gave you that. So that is done. And number 8 also I gave you the answer yesterday. Check. Check. Number 8 also I gave you the answer yesterday. Yes or no? Number 8 also I gave you the answer yesterday. Check karo. Number 8. Are you sure? No, I gave you the points. Question is different. Question is framed differently, but you know the answer. Functions of hydrochloric acid. If you want to write, you can write it again. Writing the question and answer together, but now you know the answer already. So complete karo. Yahan tak complete karo, then I move forward. Otherwise, that chapter, if you have one go, we do it will be confusing. Bolo Shreya. कंप्लीट करो 10 मिनट्स में फटाफट फटाफट कंप्लीट करो डाउट्स है पूछो see that this first part should be clear then we move on to the process of digestion will be bit more difficult for you because very many enzymes and different steps you have to remember पहले ये बात clear करो Alkaline means when you talk about the pH scale पता है chemistry में सीखा ना hydronium ion concentration say suppose whenever you try to test a chemical substance a chemical solution say suppose any type of a chemical solution I want to test what is the pH of the water of a pond and the lake and the sea I want to test the say suppose now the cold drinks that you drink, the milk that comes to our house, what is the pH? So I can use a pH paper, pH strip hota hai, and then I can dip it, and then there are some numbers which are there. So actually, what are they trying to test? The hydronium ion concentration of any particular substance. A pH खाली liquid का नहीं होता, वो that can be for even any fruit that you are eating, any food that you are eating. So what is actually the concept of pH? We are trying to understand what is the concentration of the hydronium ion in that substance. Zyada hai if the hydronium ion concentration is more. So how do we measure? Hydronium concentration we can start measuring from 0 to 14. 7, the midpoint. This 7 is known as neutral point. So जैसे I am moving from 0 to 7. The hydronium ion concentration is increasing. So if I say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I talk about a solution or any substance which has got a pH 1. You understand that it is highly acidic. But as I move this side, pH 5, mild acidic. Or it is not a very strong acid. At the same time, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So now that I talk about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 10, and 9. So if I talk about a solution, which has a pH of 9, the moment I go this side, this is known as alkaline. And the moment I talk about this is known as acidic. I told you 7 is neutral. एक पार्टिकुलर सॉल्यूशन है जिसका pH 7 है, वो ना तो एसिडिक है ना तो बेसिक है, बट इट्स अ न्यूट्रल सॉल्यूशन। एक पार्टिकुलर सॉल्यूशन है जिसका pH 7 है, व्हाट विल यू अंडरस्टैंड? हाइड्रोनियम आयन concentration is quite high, that means it is alkaline. Hydronium ion concentration is quite low, acidic. So now I said saliva is 7 to 8 acid. So 7 to 8, that means saliva is what? Acidic or alkaline? Alkaline. So 7 to 8 matlab it's somewhere here. 7 to 8. But at the same time, you are going to understand, okay, let me mention something more. I talk about the gastric juice. Okay, yesterday I must have talked about stomach, gastric juice. Gastric juice have got a pH of 2, 1 to 2. So what do you understand? It is highly acidic or alkaline or mild acidic? Strong acidic. This strongly acidic. That's what we had learned, that if you don't take food for a long time, that acid, the hydrochloric acid in our stomach can start eroding the stomach wall itself. And what do people suffer from because of that condition I told you? Gastroenteritis or gastric ulcer people suffer from. So many people you will come across who have improper food habit, long fasting hours every month, every year. So what happens? They start suffering from gastric ulcers. That's why, because that in our stomach, if the acid is there and no food, the stomach wall starts getting eroded by the acid. I put some acid on your hand. What will happen? The skin will start burning. No, same thing happens in our stomach also if there's no. Done? Did you all get the answers? फटाफट करो. Don't waste time. हाँ? हाँ, हो गया. Now start with the questions, and those questions you will write in the notebook. Progress check हो गया है. So start writing down the questions in the notebook. Start with the first one. If you know, very confident about the answer, then you write. Agar no, and then if you don't know, then you ask. Confirm karo. Chalo, start. Take down the first question. Why are you wasting that space there? हाँ? मम्मी ने क्या पूरा स्टॉक रखा हुआ है नोटबुक का? हाँ? Progress check I asked you to do, no? You have a doubt, keep asking. You have a doubt to progress check. I asked you which one. One
question 107 to 107. Now, maybe question the four multiple choice the four the picture.
multiple choice मैंने दिया था. I did not see what set of questions I asked you. Progress check to be done. Which one? Page 107 का
115.
115.
Multiple choice of four very important.
Confused. I did not. We are making the stage there. What are you going to be? You are short answer. Very fast. Not confusion. Clearly, मैंने बताया है ना. I had been I was talking only in English और कोई जर्मन प्रैक्टिस ब्रेक में नहीं बात कर रही थी. मुझे समझ ही नहीं आया. हो रहा है कपीस. करो फास्ट. Now go to those questions. If you have done last 2 minutes, go to check complete karo. Now go to those questions. Pharynx is the part just here, just after the mouth. And now this part that you talk about, this is the larynx, which produces the voice. So pharynx, just larynx ke upar hai. When I talk about the start of the, say suppose now I talk about the start of the food pipe, and this is the windpipe. So ये है हमारा windpipe, ये है हमारा food pipe. And if I talk about a common passage, so this is how it is. It is now that I talk about that the food will move this side, and if this is the nose, the wind will move this side. I'm sorry.
हम इससे पहले से पहले आता था.
हाँ. So say suppose I'm talking about this, the food will actually move here. We have got the food pipe at the back and the windpipe at the front. So now the wind will actually move this way. And this particular region through which the food also moves, the wind also moves, the inhaled air also moves. This is called the pharynx, and it is just above the larynx or esophagus. So it is a common passage for the food and air. I'll show you here the alimentary canal diagram so that you are aware about the part also. Keep doing, I'll show you. Could you see this part? Pharynx. So this is our windpipe. This is our food pipe. Very close it is. And just the part above through which the food also will move in and the inhaled air also will move in. So this particular region is known as the pharynx, the common passage of the food and the air. And then it gets divided into two tubes. Windpipe, food pipe. Windpipe pehle. This wavy thing that you can touch in your neck, this is the windpipe, and iske ठीक पीछे होता है food pipe.
Why there is no enzyme digestion happen?
There is no enzyme necessary
Because vitamins can be directly absorbed.
because they are already in their simplest form and can be directly absorbed. They are already in their simplest forms and can be directly absorbed. Speed up, both of you. Go to the questions. happened here? बताओ कौन सा बोलो फटाफट
two temporary grinding.
two
Two temporary grinding.
two temporary grinding
Mammalian.
what is it two temporary grinding teeth two
Mammalian teeth are going to start doing like the first step of
no not again where is it the two temporary grinding teeth the two temporary grinding teeth deciduous no premolars temporary but they are because they will again get shed premolars they are the grinding tools
last week, the three last grinders will be molar.
molars
But it's given all but not the three molar.
where
In this paragraph.
what is it deciduous milk or deciduous dentition where it is the temporary or deciduous teeth, yes. Deciduous teeth, and I'm sorry, that will be molars, not premolars, molars. Deciduous teeth they are talking about. Deciduous, meaning the temporary teeth which will fall off. And in an infant, premolars are not there. Molars, two molars, correct? Molars. Deciduous, not the temporary set of teeth, meaning milk dentition wala teeth. And in an infant, if you check, they don't have molars. The dental formula is 2102. Two molars hota hai. Premolars absent hai 00 na. So you have to not take the adolescent. You have to take the infant ka. Deciduous is infant tooth basically. So premolars absent hai, molars 2 hai per half of the jaw. So 2 teeth. Molars absent is molars.
I'm not able to find the fourth one.
No, read. Chewing of food thoroughly is helpful in digestion. Chewing of the food, what will you write? Chewing of the food, mastication, chewing of the food when the food is converted into a semi-solid mass, chewing and mixing of the food with saliva. This also allows the enzymes to act on the food much better and allow the process of digestion happen. Write down that answer, all of it. You wrote already?
Yes, sir.
Bolo.
I got it from the book as well. So chewing the food turns the food into small size bits,
Ha.
which have relatively larger surface area for the enzymes to
Act on the food. Correct. Write down, I'll dictate. You don't disturb him, let him complete his work. Those of you who have not finished that, fatapat wo question likho and write down the answer. Chewing of the food, which number you just check later. Chewing of the food helps in breaking down the big pieces of food into numerous small pieces breaking down the big pieces of food into numerous small pieces. And mixing with the saliva. And mixing with the saliva. Thus increasing the surface area. Thus increasing the surface area. Full stop. This helps. This helps. This helps in the efficient action of enzymes. This helps in the efficient action of enzymes over efficient action of enzymes, or this helps the enzymes to bring about chemical digestion. This helps the enzymes to bring about chemical digestion. That's it. That much only you'll have to write. Vedant ka bhi good night chal raha hai. He did not even wake up. Obviously. Done? Chalo, all questions done?
Through all regions of the gut.
All regions of the gut. All regions of the gut. All throughout the alimentary canal it happens, except for the mouth. Esophagus mein, stomach mein, intestine mein, all throughout peristalsis happens. So gut matlab, gut is the stomach and the intestine. Gut meaning stomach and intestine. That part is called gut. Ho gaya? Chalo, both of you complete this question whichever you missed out. Done? All answers you got. So now next what I will to study is, we are going to study the process of digestion. We are going to study the process of digestion now. Now, how are you going to study actually the process of digestion? You should understand that which are the parts responsible for carrying on the process of digestion. What are the 5 parts now you have for the alimentary canal? The mouth, esophagus, small intestine, large intestine. Does the mouth show any step of digestion? What was it? Does the mouth show any step of digestion? Yes. Does the stomach show any, esophagus show any step of digestion? No. The stomach, yes. That also just 1 or 2 steps, not too many. Then when I talk about the small intestine, yes, maximum steps. Duodenum, jejunum. Ileum majorly does not show enough steps of digestion, because by the time the food passes into the ileum, the food is almost in its soluble form or simpler absorbable form. Then what is happening in the ileum part of the small intestine? Absorption. Now that the food is passing into the large intestine, any more digestion to be done? No. Only the reabsorption of water to be done and the formation of the pieces to be done. So let us learn which are the parts of the alimentary canal and what steps of digestion you are supposed to understand. So we're going to start with the mouth, the first part of steps of digestion now to understand. The process of digestion now to understand. First of all, what is the definition of the word digestion with reference to nutrition chapter? Can you tell me? Already I defined this word the other day. What is the definition of the word digestion? What is digestion?
The process of breaking down
the process of breaking down of complex substances of food into simpler forms. Again, when I talk about the breaking down, there can be 2 types of breaking down. Either I'm talking about physical breakdown, physical digestion, or I'm talking about chemical digestion. Then what is the meaning of physical and chemical digestion? When I'm talking about the chunk of bread that I eat, when I'm chewing it, that big piece of bread or the big chunk of that apple is getting converted into smaller bits. So that is physical digestion and side by side. Now, if I talk about, say, suppose now I'm talking about that apple, or I'm talking about some peanuts. Okay, I talk about some peanuts. This peanuts, when I put in my mouth, I'm grinding, I'm chewing them. Physical digestion hua. Physical breakdown hua hai. Because whatever peanuts I ate, those big chunks got converted into smaller pieces and it got mixed with the saliva. But chemical digestion hua hai? No, because in the mouth, no protein digestion happens. But I talk about the piece of bread that I ate. Physical digestion hoga in 2 minutes? Yes. Chemical digestion hoga? हाँ, वो भी होगा. Did you understand what I told you? So there's a difference between physical digestion. Physical digestion only means that breaking down of a bigger substance of food, a bigger chunk of food into smaller bits. But क्या chemical composition change हो रहा है? If that is also happening, then that is chemical digestion. So not necessarily every time when I'm talking about physical digestion के साथ chemical digestion हमेशा नहीं भी हो सकता है. So I start with the process of digestion again. Write down the definition of that word again. Very important. What is the meaning of the word digestion? Define digestion. What are enzymes? What is the role of enzyme? This is very important for you. Anytime you should be able to answer these questions. Define digestion. What is the role of enzymes? Put that question there. Define digestion. What is the role of enzymes? Define digestion. What is the role of enzymes? Take that question. Define digestion. What is the role of enzymes? Give me this book. Let me see what are the other steps. Define digestion. Write down the process of breaking down. Process of breaking down of complex food into simpler forms. Complex food into simpler forms is known as digestion. Process of breaking down of complex food into simpler forms is known as digestion. Process of breaking down of complex food into simpler forms is known as digestion. Full stop. What are enzymes? Next paragraph, right? Enzymes are chemical substances. Enzymes are chemical substances, also known as biocatalysts. Enzymes are chemical substances, also known as biocatalysts. Enzymes are chemical substances, also known as biocatalysts. Which help in or cut that word help, which bring out the process of, breakdown of complex food into simpler forms faster. Which bring out the breakdown of complex food into simpler forms faster. Which bring out the process of breakdown of complex food into simpler forms faster. Now, what is the meaning of the word enzyme? Say suppose I perform an activity. Where I take some protein powder. I take some protein powder in a test tube and I put some drops of pepsin. What happens? The proteins, the complex proteins, it starts getting converted into some simpler forms, peptides, polypeptides, etc. But normally also does this process of breakdown happen? Yes, it will happen normally also, but it takes without. Now, another test tube, I may just take the protein powder, just leave it as it is under room temperature, maybe for a day. And then maybe after quite a long time, I get to see that the chemical composition is changing. But the moment I put those drops of enzyme, the process becomes very fast. Without that chemical substance known as enzymes, will the process of chemical breakdown happen? Yes, it may happen because of the changes in the environmental condition, temperature, etc. The changes will happen, but it will take a long time. It takes a very long time. So when I'm talking about the word enzymes are always making the process of breakdown much faster. We start with the mouth. Digestion, now that we know, we start first. The first part that we are going to talk about will be the mouth. Something to very clearly remember: the pH of the mouth is 7 to 8. I already mentioned saliva. The pH of the mouth is 7 to 8. Now, in this pH, what type of food can undergo the process of digestion and what type of food not? Carbohydrate can undergo the process of digestion. What about fats? No, fats cannot. What about proteins? Not at all. So apart from proteins, fats and carbohydrates, do the vitamins and the minerals and the roughage and the water need digestion? No, they don't. They're already in their simplest forms. No. So whenever we are talking about the three types of nutrients, so in the concept of digestion, we are going to talk about only three: the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, because these are the complex types of nutrients that are there in our food. So what is the first step that you have to understand? The first step that you have to write is starch getting broken down to maltose. Now here you have to remember the concept of polysaccharide and disaccharide and monosaccharides. So starch getting broken down with the help of the enzyme known as salivary amylase. The enzyme known as salivary amylase. What is the salivary amylase? Also known as, this is also known as tyline. pH क्या है 7 to 8. And because of this action, the starch gets converted to maltose. Maltose is what category of carbohydrate? Maltose is which? It belongs to which category of carbohydrate? What are the three categories of carbohydrate? Three classes of carbohydrate are what? Polysaccharides, monosaccharides. Right? Starch कौन सा category है? Polysaccharide, सबसे complex. And now that I talk about maltose, ये कौन सा category है? Disaccharide. So now you understand, because of this enzyme, the complex form is getting converted into some simpler forms. Salivary amylase. So starch getting converted to maltose. Is there any other step of digestion that we can talk about here? No. So far the mouth is concerned, it is only the action of the salivary amylase and only the first step of digestion. We don't talk about the second part. So here, so far steps of digestion are concerned, you'll have to remember the continuity one after the other. So now I talk about, so ये हो गया first step. I write down the second step, but before I go to the second step, I have to talk about which part of the body I am understanding. Stomach. No more step of there. You both are too much in love with each other. And that is affecting both of your studies. Friendship should be very mature. Where now that you are studying and sitting together to study, इतना प्यार की जरूरत ही नहीं है. My Hindi is bad, never mind. But इतना ज़्यादा प्यार, my God. And forget about you. हर condition is अच्छा इसीलिए. मतलब मोबाइल it is 10-15 पूरा brain lock हो जाता है. अब और कुछ सीखना ही नहीं है. ऐसा है क्या सिस्टम? हाँ? 5 मिनट नहीं, मैं तुमको 15 मिनट ब्रेक दूंगी ना. अभी 15 मिनट ब्रेक है. अभी चलो, अभी हो गया, तो ब्रेन लॉक हो गया, तो अभी कुछ बोल के फायदा ही नहीं है. So we'll take a break and I will come after. Don't change anything. Start averages fast. पाँच मिनट का ब्रेक है. 5 मिनट का. 5 मिनट. हाँ, तो never mind. I'll do it. Don't worry.
एग्जाम हम लोग के जल्दी हाँ 2 चैप्टर 40 में तक हाँ उसको निकाल
अबे ये लोग क्या पागल लोग हैं? गणपति के टाइम में क्लास में बेचारा नहीं. कल तो तो आपको सीधा बोल रहा है. मैंने कह दिया आपको तो पढ़ना है बस मार के सीधा बोलने वाले तो बोल जाए भाई मतलब ये क्लास की पागल इसमें वो कल रात को आना था. अब टाइम खत्म हो गया. अभी तो जल्दी उठना पड़ा. अभी सवाल वापस मैं भी लेटा है.
आज मैंने निकाल रहा हूँ पास से निकल रहा
ये तो होना चाहिए था
नहीं पहले बायो होना चाहिए नहीं हमको सीधा ये बोला है पता है 12 से 1 तक ये
अरे मुझे लगा अभी तो कौन सा टेस्ट रखते हैं जो हो गया हमारे फर्स्ट अरे भाई 11 दिखा भाई मेरे बाबू
बच्चों का भी हमारे सब इसके नाम से कैसे कर रहा हूँ
अच्छा राजी ने दिखा अच्छा चल ना मैं दोनों साथ लड़ रहे हैं
हाँ वही है
स्कूल की करने देने का देना अरे सारा हां एक नाम सा इतना सारा सब अच्छा है और नाम से मुझे बात
This सारे sentences में class
वो जो है ना वो की लैंग्वेज है भी एग्जाम होगा ये काफी कॉम्प्लिकेशन भाई समझ लो वेरी बार बोलना करते करते दुआ पहले याद ही नहीं को पढ़ लिया भाई और मेरा मतलब कितनी बात सही मैंने भी सारा उनका
देखते हैं
हाँ तो अपने किसी खरीद के लिए कर भी दिया वो आपके बोल के किसी का कितना खरीदा था कि कितना रिकॉर्ड हो रहा था तो बोला था बोल के देखिए मेरी आवाज नहीं आ रही लोग
और चलिए
हाँ
और 15 मिनट दे दो ब्रेक
अरे नहीं मैम वो इसके बाद टेस्ट देना है
हाँ
इसके बाद बायो से भी टेस्ट देना है
नहीं ब्रेक चाहिए तो मैं दे सकती हूँ मुझे कोई प्रॉब्लम
मैम
नहीं है
पढ़ा लो खत्म करो ये
15 मिनट 20 मिनट मैं चैप्टर होने के बाद ब्रेक दे दूँ हाँ ब्रेक दूंगी पहले ये चैप्टर खत्म हो उसके बाद 10 मार्क का मॉक टेस्ट देती हूँ उसके बाद ब्रेक
क्योंकि आज ही हमारे टेस्ट
कौन सा चैप्टर का टेस्ट है बायो
हेल्थ और ये सॉरी हाइजीन और
हाइजीन और हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन कोई पढ़ता है
मैं कुछ नहीं करके आया कल से बहुत थक गया
हाइजीन और हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन अभी 10 मिनट में पढ़ लोगे तो भी हो जाए
बच्चों का बहुत
तुम लोग तो दे नहीं रहे हो अब तो दे रहे हैं
इतना ओवर कॉन्फिडेंस ना एटलीस्ट इसके साथ मत दिखाओ ही इज वेरी कंसिस्टेंट नाउ when we are talking about digestion, so what did we say? Stomach. Now let us talk about the steps of stomach. Stomach में कौन सा enzyme? Which is that enzyme present in the stomach? Pepsin. So सबसे पहले ये है the enzyme pepsin is released in the inactive form. So what is the inactive form known as? The inactive form is known as pepsinogen, and in the presence of hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen gets converted to pepsin. Then this pepsin will start acting on the complex proteins, and these proteins will be now broken down with the help of pepsin to some simpler forms known as proteoses or peptones. So let us write peptones or proteoses. Any one also you can write peptones or proteoses. So this is the first step of digestion that we will talk about in the in your book they have written peptides, but actually peptides बाद में आता है. Okay, you can add here peptones and peptides. So when I talk about peptides, remember peptides are still long chains. Now which is complex? Proteins, when I say proteins are complex or peptides are complex? Peptides are simpler actually. Proteins are complex. And we understand this protein that I'm talking about present in the eggs and the milk and the nuts. The proteins may consist of some 100 or even more amino acids linked by bonds. But now that I talk about the peptides and the peptones, they may have something around some 80, 90, 60, 50 amino acids linked. So obviously these are simpler, no? But still the process of digestion is not complete. So ye ho gaya one. Next is we are talking about another enzyme which is present or which is released by the stomach wall of especially the infants when we are talking about the milk feeders. So if I'm talking about the infant stages when the food is basically milk products, at that time another enzyme starts getting released, and that is what is called renin. So now when we are talking about the role of renin, see here, same like pepsinogen, renin is also released in the inactive form. What is the name? The next that we are talking about is prorenin. Always understand, if you talk about a term something like this, pepsinogen, prorenin, these are called precursor enzymes. These are called precursors. What is the meaning of the word precursor? Chemical substance which is not capable of carrying out the process of digestion, but it is the inactive form. In presence of an acid or any other enzyme, it gets activated and now starts its function. So now I talk about prorenin. Prorenin, how will it get activated? In the presence of hydrochloric acid, gets converted to what? Renin, gets converted to renin. Then next one, the milk protein. The milk protein. What is the milk protein known as? Or if I write this way, what is the milk protein known as? Milk protein casein. Casein, that is the milk protein in presence of renin. In bracket you can write. What is casein? Casein is the milk protein, and this milk protein in presence of renin will get converted to para-caseinate. It will get converted to para-caseinate. It gets converted to para-caseinate. Keep writing, Anish. I'll not be able to keep it for a long time. I'll have to wipe it. Now, para-caseinate. But this para-caseinate starts reacting with the calcium of the milk. Milk is rich in calcium, no? Is milk rich in calcium? Yes. So now it starts reacting with calcium of the milk, and this results in the formation of calcium para-caseinate. Calcium para-caseinate. So this is what is formed in the stomach of the milk feeders, infants, if you have to mention that way. So next is we talk about the digestion in the stomach. So for digestion in the stomach, we have been majorly talking about that after the role of pepsin, also you can mention the role of renin. So this is over. Is there any other step of digestion happening in the stomach? No, there is no other step of digestion that we can understand happening in the stomach. Why not? Protein digestion takes place in the mouth. Your answer should be in the mouth. The pH is 7 to 8. And for protein digestion, pH of 1 to 2 is majorly required because hydrochloric acid is responsible for maintaining the acidic medium. But at the same time, if you are asked questions that why does carbohydrate and fat digestion does not happen in the stomach? Carbohydrate digestion cannot happen because the acidic medium of the stomach is not suitable for carbohydrate digestion. Carbohydrate digestion takes place at a pH of 7 to 8. So if I'm talking about this side, here also to understand, here the pH is what? The pH is 7 to 8. And here if I'm talking about the pH is what? 1 to 2. So for protein digestion, such type of a pH is necessary. And for carbohydrate digestion, such type of a pH is necessary. What about the fat digestion to start? For fat digestion, of course, an alkaline medium is necessary. But in either of the two parts, is there any enzyme to bring about the digestion of fat? No. Neither the gastric juice has any, or the saliva has any. The saliva also does not have any fat digesting enzyme, and the gastric juice also does not have any fat digesting enzyme in that part. Now next part, we start with the third part. What is the third part? The small intestine. The third part is small intestine. But when I talk about the small intestine, let us now talk part-wise. So I said, ye ho gaya first step, and this is the second step that you'll have to remember. Okay, this is the first step of digestion. This is the second step of digestion. When I ask you questions, you should be able to remember which steps to write. So the first step of digestion, this renin I am not considering as a main step of digestion because this doesn't happen in the adult body. Only for a short period of time it happens. Okay, so that's why I'm not considering that as a major step 1 and 2. Now I come to the third step. Now. What is the third step of digestion that we're going to talk about? Fats. Now we start with fats. What happens to fats? This fat. Now I'm talking about small intestine. The small intestine may. What is the first part? Duodenum. And if I talk about duodenum, what happens? Which type of juices does the duodenum receive? Bile juice from the liver and pancreatic juice from the pancreas. So let us talk about the role of the bile juice first. The fats in presence of the bile salts. Fats in presence of the bile salts. What are bile salts? Majorly sodium and potassium salts to understand. Okay, so the bile salts completely starts breaking down the fats. And first step is the fats will get broken down into smaller fat globules. It will get broken down into small fat globules. Actually, there are terms for them. But these terms are not there in your syllabus, so you have to mention this way. There are terms triglycerides or not. So we're not writing those terms right now. Fats getting broken. You're just to understand that the big chunk of fat molecule, big complex molecule is getting bigger, getting broken down to smaller that way, you know. So the fats getting broken down to small fat molecules. Am I talking about an enzyme here? Am I talking about any enzyme here? No. I'm talking about fats broken down by fat bile salts. And what is this process called? This process is called emulsification of fat. This process is called emulsification of fat. So now that I'm talking about emulsification of fat, try understanding that to talk about the first step of protein digestion, it was brought about by an enzyme. To talk about the first step of carbohydrate digestion, it was brought about by which enzyme? First step of carbohydrate digestion, which enzyme? First step of protein digestion, FC. First step of fat digestion, not with an enzyme, but with the help of bile salts. Okay, so that's a difference to understand. So, did we talk about one step of chemical breakdown for all the three nutrients? Yes. Again, we'll have to start from here. In the small intestine, this is the first step that happens, or this is one particular step that happens. Then again, we have to come across. Now that the food passes, you also have to understand that when I'm talking about in the mouth, the food that we are chewing and mixing with the saliva, what is this mass of food known as? The mass of food is known as the bolus. Now, this bolus is rolling down by the process of peristalsis. It is moving down the esophagus and coming into the stomach. And now this bolus starts getting converted into a more fluid form because the gastric juice, which is watery, starts getting mixed with the food. So this mass of food is now becoming even more in the fluid state. The consistency is changing now. It is becoming even more fluid in state. So are we going to term that mass of food or that semi-fluid mass of food again as bolus? No. In the stomach, we are going to term it as chyme. What is chyme and bolus? How are they different? This is just a comparative in order the food to be swallowed down in our mouth. The food is not in a semi-fluid form, it's almost semi-solid. It is just getting mixed with a little bit of the saliva, no? And then now it runs down. And now that it is in the stomach, it is getting converted into a semi-fluid form. What is it called? Chyme. But how is it moving down? Which process are we to understand here? How is it moving down? How is it moving down? Peristalsis. Remember the definition of peristalsis. And now from the chyme, if I have to talk about, yes, the food is still moving down. No, the food is still moving down the alimentary canal, if I understand. And now that it reaches the duodenum, it is even more in a fluid state. The fluidity is increasing because now it is coming in contact with the bile juice, pancreatic juice, all these. So what is the fluid state of the food now here known as? It is known as the chyme. So the term also keeps changing. First of all, we talk about the bolus and then the chyme and then the chyle there. So emulsification of fat, okay? So now in this partially digested food which has entered the small intestine, the partially digested food which has entered the small intestine, are the carbohydrates all present in the form of maltose? No, kuch carbohydrates still may be there in the form of starch. जो अभी भी complete maltose तक breakdown नहीं हुआ है. अगर ऐसा है, then that also can be taken care of. So now I talk about the fourth step where I can see that जो भी starch बाकी है in this food, partially digested food, this starch will be now broken down by the pancreatic amylase. When I talk about the enzyme known as amylase, amylases are always carbohydrate digesting enzymes, always to remember, okay? Amylases are always carbohydrate digesting enzymes, amylase. Then next is starch with the help of pancreatic amylase. Starch with the help of pancreatic amylase will get converted to maltose, if at all. In your book, the steps are not given in a sequence, they've just given it roughly. You write it down in a sequence, step by step. क्या हो रहा है? And this enzyme, this pancreatic amylase, is also known as amylopsin. Remember the alternative names also. Pancreatic amylase is also known as amylopsin. Next one, the fifth step. The fifth step. Next is, let us now start with, okay, yeah, pancreatic amylase. Now let us start with I already mentioned that there is a specific enzyme in the pancreatic juice. Now we are talking about enzymes of the pancreatic juice. If I write trypsinogen, what do you understand? Inactive form of the enzyme, no? And this inactive form of the enzyme, I already mentioned that कोई भी inactive form of the enzyme जो होता है हमारे body में, in two ways it can get activated, either in the presence of hydrochloric acid or in the presence of any other enzyme. So this trypsinogen in the presence of another enzyme known as enterokinase gets converted to trypsin, and trypsin is actually a protein digesting enzyme. Trypsin is actually a protein digesting enzyme. So now we write, but what will be the form of the protein in the chyle? Can you tell me? ये जो chyle है, which is the partially digested food which has come down to the small intestine, are the proteins still in their complex form ki partially digested ho chuka hai? So what will be the form of that protein in the chyle? ये यहाँ पे देखो peptides या the proteoses, है ना? So I will start from here now. So proteoses or peptide? Are you understanding what I'm writing? मतलब step by step, थोड़ा whatever step has happened in the mouth, then in the stomach, then in the small, step by step digestion हो रहा है. देखो, if you're not understanding again, I will explain. And this is how you should remember. Proteoses and peptide, this will be now acted upon by this enzyme trypsin, and this will get converted into some simpler peptide. This will still get converted into some simpler peptides. This will get converted into some simpler peptides or smaller peptides and few amino acids. Smaller peptides and few amino acids. Few amino acids. Okay, smaller peptides and few amino acids बहुत negligible होता है in this step. So we are already done with this. What are we left with? Are we left with the emulsified fats? Pancreatic juice का एक हमने step लिखा है, starch digestion, protein digestion, अभी fat digestion लिखना बाकी है ना pancreatic juice का. So let us now start. Fifth हो गया. Now sixth step I'm writing down. So this I can also say that these are the emulsified fats. I can also write this. These are emulsified fats. What is the meaning of emulsified fats? Fats broken down by bile salts. So I can write this way, either you write small fat globules or emulsified fats. Same thing. Emulsified fats will be broken down by pancreatic lipase. Will be broken down by pancreatic lipase, which is also known as steep cell. Pancreatic lipase, also known as steep cell. Steep cell. And this will break down the fats into some. They have straight away given their fatty acids. Actually, it is not fatty acids and triglycerides. Okay. Actually, it is triglycerides. Yeah. Fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids and glycerol. See, they are overlapping this. Here you write triglycerides. Actually, this is triglycerides. But I don't know if your teacher will accept this. Actually, triglycerides hota hai. Whenever I am talking about the job of the pancreatic lipases, emulsified get converted to triglycerides first and then get converted to fatty acids. Here they have just repeated the steps twice. So triglycerides and then the triglycerides will get converted to fatty acids and glycerol. So ye ho gaya about the pancreatic juice. We are yet to learn about enzymes of intestinal juice. Now, did we talk about intestinal juice so far? No, we have only studied about what? Saliva, gastric juice and bile juice and pancreatic juice. Now let me add that whenever we are talking about that the food is running down into the jejunum, do you remember the jejunum? Jejunum kya hai? It is the second part of the small intestine. No? So when I'm talking about that, ye jo sare steps hua hai, all these steps, where is it happening? All these steps are happening in the duodenum. If I mention specifically, all these steps are happening in the duodenum, and majorly in the duodenum, the action of the bile juice and the pancreatic juice is predominant. But now that the food is passing down to the jejunum, the walls of the jejunum and partially the duodenum also starts releasing their own enzyme, jisko intestinal juice कहते हैं. So now the last part of digestion would be the role of those few enzymes. वैसे तो बहुत सारे हैं, we are talking just few right now. So jejunum is also releasing what variety of enzymes, and those enzymes and the water together would be termed as the intestinal juice. The walls of the duodenum, the later part of the duodenum and majorly the jejunum, they are releasing a whole lot of enzyme with water, and that is what is called the intestinal juice. Now, when I talk about ye jo enzymes hai, ye how do they help in the process of digestion? These are the last enzymes, a whole lot of enzymes, which completes the last few stages of digestion. Let us now complete this way. So we are already done with the thigh. Now you have to treat with what are the steps now you have to go? You have to talk about this, you have to talk about this, and you have to talk about this. Are they already in their simplest form? Inka digestion और होना बाकी है. Let us now start this way. I talk about the seventh step. What is the seventh step? I'll start from here. Maltose. Maltose. With the help of the enzyme maltase. With the help of the enzyme maltase, they will get broken down to glucose and glucose. They will get broken down to glucose and glucose. When I say I write maltose getting broken down to glucose and glucose, मैंने glucose दो बार क्यों लिखा? हमारे बुक में एक बार लिखा है, but I prefer to write it twice. क्यों दो बार क्यों लिखा? Because this is the disaccharide and ये दो है monosaccharide. So this enzyme is breaking down the disaccharide and converting them into monosaccharides. Clear है? अब digestion complete हो गया? Yes. How do we understand? Because glucose is the simplest form of carbohydrate. Now the process of digestion is over. Then something other than that, I have to talk about one more, something like lactose. And this will be broken down by lactase. And what are we going to get here? Glucose and galactose. So all these words, glucose, that's why nutrition we learned first. So now that you know a little bit of this concept, glucose kya hai, galactose kya hai. So ye ho gaya second. Let us talk about the eighth step. What is the eighth step? Let me now check here. Peptides. अब कुछ amino acids तो आ गया है, but now these peptides also need to get broken down. So let us write here peptides getting broken down by peptidases. By peptidase. And what should it give rise to? This should give rise to amino acids. This should give rise to amino acids. And the last step is the ninth step to understand. The last step is the ninth step to understand that when I talk about the triglycerides, acted upon by the intestinal lipase now, and acted upon by the intestinal lipase, intestinal lipase. Better you write that, it's there in your mention, so you can write it. I'm not giving you too much extra, it's there in your book. Intestinal lipase it is. The enzyme name is intestinal lipase, and getting it broken down completely to fatty acids and glycerol, fatty acids and glycerol. Now you check. I talk about this, and I talk about this, and I talk about this. These are the simplest forms of fatty acids plus glycerol, GLYCEROL. So now, after these steps of digestion, what did we get? Did we get the complex carbohydrate completely broken down to the simplest form? Yes, glucose. Did we get the complex proteins completely broken down to their simplest form, amino acids? Yes. And did we get the complex fats to complete absorb to the simplest forms like fatty acids and glycerol? Yes. So once you reach these steps, the process of digestion is over. Now, what is the situation? Now the situation is that if I talk about the villus, let us now go to the concept of the villus again. Let us go to the concept of the villus. What did we learn here? That this is the this is the intestinal region. What happened? Feeling cold? So now, when I talk about that, what is going to happen here is, let us go back to the structure of the villus there. I showed you yesterday the structure of the villus. So now, when I talk about a basic structure of the villus, to again understand this way, if you remember yesterday I showed you that in case you talk about the inner lining of the intestine, how should the inner lining of the intestine appear? So where are these molecules? Now we try to understand how it should have been or what it should be in the inner lumen of the small intestine. So in the inner lumen of the intestine, now the situation is something like this, where I come across that if this is the small intestine and the villi and other structure, something this way I understand, and the inner space of the small intestine is empty here, the lumen of the small intestine with all the layers, okay? So I'm understanding that all these molecules, these red ones, perhaps these are the molecules of amino acids, and then some glucose molecules I understand, and some molecules of fatty acids I understand here. So all these molecules, where are they? They are now in the lumen of the small intestine. The process of digestion is over. If I magnify one villus something like this, something like this, what did I tell you yesterday? What is this lining of the villus made up of? The lining of the villus, if I draw in the form of the cells, I should always understand that the entire villus is actually made up of some epithelial cells. No, the entire villus is actually made up of some epithelial cells like this. This entire villus is made up of a single layer of epithelial cells. The entire villus is made up of a single layer of epithelial cells like this. What is this layer known as? The single layered epithelium. And where are those molecules now that I'm talking about? The molecules now that I'm talking about, maybe now these are the fatty acid molecules. These are now the amino acid molecules. And these are now the glucose molecules there. So it's not when I talk about a single villus, is not the situation something like this, where on the outer wall of every single villus, there are plenty of such molecules there. On the outer wall of every single villus, such type of molecules are in plenty. Now, when I have to come across that what is going to happen here, is we understand that there are some blood vessels. These are the blood vessels, first thing to understand. So this molecules, now talk about one single molecule, I'm talking about the fatty acid molecule. Say suppose I talk about the fatty acids. This fatty acids, will they find a path straight across the epithelium? Yes, they will. Why? Because it is only a single layered epithelium, just like one line of cells, very thin, to allow the process of diffusion happen. What is the meaning of diffusion? The movement of molecules from a region of high concentration to a region of low concentration across a membrane, or when the two molecules are in close contact. So yahan pe, in the inner region of the villus, the concentration of all these molecules as it is much lesser. And on the inner region, since the concentration is much less, so these molecules can easily diffuse from a region of high to a region of low. But I started talking about the fat molecules first, because If I'm talking about the fat molecules, no, the fat molecules will, of course, they will pass through the wall of the villus, but they will not enter into the blood. But rather, they will always have a tendency to enter into the lymph straight away. They will become a component of the lymph straight away. If this is the lymph vessel that I'm talking about, they will straight away enter into the lymph. But what about the blood vessels then? If I talk about that this is the blood vessel, then what about the blood vessels then? The blood vessels will start gathering the rest of the nutrients. Then what are the rest of the nutrients? This nutrient, which are the glucose molecules, these are the glucose molecules, they will cut across the membrane and fall into the blood. Glucose. What about the fatty acids? Yes, the fatty acids also will cross the membrane and fall into the blood. So the fatty acids are coming here in lots and the glucose also coming here in lots. But is the fats coming directly into the blood? No, they will first of all enter into the lymph. But why not they will come in contact with the blood? Maybe they will also touch the blood capillary wall. But why are they not entering? Because the lipid molecules are not soluble or they will not be allowed to enter into the membrane or through the membrane of the capillaries of the blood. They will not enter into the capillaries of the blood, but they will easily be entering. There are many factors to understand here. The solubility, the hydrophilic nature, all these things are there. So right now you have to understand this way, that whenever I talk about any particular villus, I talk about any particular villus. What are the components? What does a villus contain? Number one, the wall is very thin. Remember the properties I'll ask you to write. What are the properties of the villus I mentioned? Number one, the wall is very thin. What is the wall made up of? A single layer of epithelium. What are the other components I mentioned? I mentioned there will be enough number of blood vessels. There will be enough number of blood vessels. Blood supply, they are profusely supplied with blood. Villus, profusely supplied with blood. But at the same time, there will also be some lymph channels. Yes, there will be some lymph channels also. And now I'll talk about a molecule of glucose. Should it straight away go into the lymph or the blood? It will straight away go into the blood. I talk about a fatty acid molecule. I talk about a fatty acid molecule. Should it go into the lymph or the blood? It will go into the lymph. Fatty acid molecule, it will go into the lymph. And if I talk about amino acid molecule, what about this? It will go into the blood also. This will also go into the blood outside. So now you understand that yes, first or at one instance, the blood is easily gathering enough amount of glucose and amino acid. But is it not gathering the fatty acid? It is, but by the way of the lymph, because the lymph, which is the secondary body fluid, lymph is a secondary body fluid, but every time the lymph goes and joins the blood by the way of a vein. It is not a separate fluid which is flowing in our body. The lymph always goes and joins the blood every time in a vein. So these lymph vessels, which are also known as lacteals, remember that word. What are they called? These lymph vessels are also known as lacteals. So ये जो lymph channels है, every time these lymph channels will flow out maybe, and very shortly they will again join a vein. तो ये lymph फिर से आपके blood में join हो रहा है. But कोई एक fatty acid molecule directly blood vessel में कभी भी enter नहीं हो सकता because of the membrane properties, the hydrophilic properties, solubility properties, all these. So this fatty acid easily lymph vessel के अंदर जा सकता है, diffuse हो सकता है, but by the way of the lymph will again fall in the blood. So ultimately the blood is getting all the three nutrients. So the blood is ultimately getting the fatty acids also, the glucose also, the amino acids also. So this process जो अभी हमने सीखा, इसको क्या बोलेंगे? This particular process is absorption. Then what is the definition of the word absorption now? The diffusion of the simplest form of nutrients, that is glucose, fatty acids, amino acids, from the lumen of the intestine through the wall of the villus and into the blood is known as absorption. Write down the definition. Define absorption. What do you understand by absorption? What do you understand by absorption? Where does this process take place? What do you understand by absorption? Where does this process take place? What do you understand by absorption? Where does this process take place? The process of diffusion. Where does this process take place? Where does this process take place? Answer, right? The process of diffusion. The process of diffusion. The process of diffusion of simplest forms of nutrients. Process of diffusion of simplest forms of nutrient, that is process of diffusion of simplest forms of nutrients, that is glucose, amino acids, and fatty acids from the lumen of the intestine, from the lumen of the ileum also you can write, from the lumen of the small intestine into the blood is known as absorption. Into the blood is known as absorption. Okay, where does this process take place? What are you supposed to write? This process takes place in the ileum of the small intestine. This process takes place in the ileum of the small intestine. Done. Now next we are going to understand what is the fate of these three nutrients. So ये जो तीन तरह के nutrients है, what is happening to these nutrients now? So अभी absorption तो हो गया. What did we learn so far? We were talking about right from the start. We were understanding that first of all we ingest the food, ingestion, and after we ingest the food, what happens? We chew the food, and now the process of digestion starts. Digestion complete होते होते last part of the small intestine में क्या हुआ? Absorption हो गया. Now this is absorption that you've written down. Now that the blood is loaded with nutrients. So now if I understand that, if I talk about that this is the blood vessel, and the blood vessel has got all the different type of nutrients in it. The blood vessel has got all the different type of nutrients in it. Glucose hai, amino acids hai, and then fatty acids hai. So how did the blood get all these three? By the method of, how did the blood get all these three type of nutrients? By the method of absorption. Now what will be the fate? This nutrients, now when the blood is flowing all throughout the body, the blood is circulating, no, all throughout the body. As the blood is circulating all throughout the body and it comes in contact with the tissues, the blood is coming in contact with the tissues, these nutrients will again be diffused into the tissues. These nutrients will again be diffused in the tissues, or as and when the blood is constantly circulating, we have got numerous blood vessels all throughout the body. So as and when the blood is circulating all throughout the body and it supplies the nutrients all to all our body tissues, what is this process now known as? This process is called assimilation. So what is the fourth step we learn? Assimilation. So we already started with ingestion, digestion, absorption, assimilation. तो assimilation के साथ साथ अब जब assimilation हो रहा है, और if I have to talk about absorption के बाद क्या? If I have to understand absorption के बाद, I would understand that अब जब small intestine में process of absorption हो चुका है, so there can be two routes after the process of absorption. If I write here that absorption के बाद two process हो सकता है. One is assimilation and the other is in the large intestine. Now, large intestine में what did we learn? Two processes or two functions yesterday. Large intestine का two functions क्या था? Reabsorption of water, formation of feces. तो अगर वो मैं समझूं, then what is this large intestine doing? Formation of feces and their release. The formation of feces and their release. तो इस process को क्या बोलेंगे? This particular process is known as egestion. This particular process is known as egestion. So what I'm saying is, अब जब absorption हो गया in the small intestine, इसके बाद दो process हो सकता है. From the small intestine, the nutrients have all gone into the blood, and the blood is getting circulated all throughout the body. So एक हो रहा है side by side assimilation, and back in the large intestine, if you check, what is happening? The undigested food which is still in the fluid form, consistency फिर भी कभी भी watery रहता है in the large intestine. The consistency is watery. But already told you yesterday, our body cannot afford to lose so much of water because we are terrestrial organisms. No? So our body is built up in such a way that the large intestinal wall can bring about a lot of reabsorption of water, and reabsorption of water के बाद formation of feces and their expulsion by the way of the anus. And ये process को हम बोलेंगे not excretion, egestion. This is not excretion. This is egestion. And back there in the blood, what is happening? Distribution of the nutrients, जिसको हम बोलेंगे assimilation. Abhi, again to start from here, as the blood is depositing the nutrients in different parts. अब ये जो तीन तरह के nutrients है, इसका क्या fate हो सकता है? Fate of these nutrients during the process, or as and when we are talking about assimilation, क्या होगा? Let us talk about the first fate of glucose. Glucose का क्या होता है? What happens to this glucose? This glucose, first of all, as and when it is getting distributed, this glucose will be first fate ये हो सकता है कि this particular glucose will have two fates. One is it will carry out cellular oxidation. It will carry out cellular oxidation in the cells of the body and release energy. So ये है एक phase of the glucose. So now when the glucose is getting deposited to different cells, the glucose is getting diffused from the blood to different cells and tissues. हर एक cell undergoes a process known as cellular respiration. In the chapter respiration, we will learn that. So every cell, now that it is gathering the glucose, it is also storing oxygen by the way of respiration. And that breakdown of the glucose with the help of oxygen and various enzymes, that is called cellular oxidation. Yeah, हर एक cell of our body goes through this process. Every cell of our body goes through this process. And ultimately, what is happening? The release of energy. So now, did you study in the chapter nutrients that glucose releases energy? Yes. Glucose always helps us in providing energy to our body. It gives energy. It's an energy-rich food. और बाकी क्या होता है? The surplus glucose, excess glucose. Now, why are we talking about surplus glucose? Do we measure that today only one cup of rice we should eat and only one slice of bread? No. The sandwiches tasty. हम दो sandwich भी तो खा लेते हैं ना? And if today mommy has prepared some special food for you, your favorite food, तो दो की जगह 3 रोटी 4 रोटी भी हो सकता है. कभी कभार है 4 स्पून की जगह 5 स्पून राइस भी तो हो सकता है कभी, है ना? What is your favorite food? हाँ? अरे you are my best friend. And you? Dal rice. And तो शाकाहारी हो ना? She's thinking favorite food कौन सा? बहुत सारा है. हाँ. अनिश जी आपका? हाँ? नॉनवेज में कुछ भी आएगा उसमें बेच करना. और
घर पे बंगालियों तो फिर एक टाइप ऑफ कुछ तो सब्जी बनाते हैं
नाम नहीं पता?
अरे बंगालियों को पता है उसको हम लोग Yeah. Bengali we call it starter chopchery. So it's like a whole mixture of.
Mixture of vegetables with mustard and all. No?
It's not even mustard. It's like with spices, and it's actually very tasty. Just
We
very.
go to his house. And तुम्हारा
biryani.
अरे वाह, हमारे class में ninth standard is my favorite class. तुमने अभी तक बोला ही नहीं कुछ. और ठीक है ना. तो आप में भी भक्ति शुद्ध शाकाहारी रहने होगा. अच्छा. So now that when we are talking about this, what is happening? Surplus, say, what I come back to this concept. Surplus मतलब every time we eat food much more than what actually our body needs. And we eat food much more than what our body actually needs. So at any time, our body has additional amount of nutrient. So additional amount of nutrient doesn't get excreted out. No, the body stores it for future use. So that is what I'm talking about, the surplus. Now, as I said, all throughout the day, if I'm just eating one roti and 2 spoons of rice and simple one small katori of vegetable, maybe that is enough for me the entire day. But no, we eat much more. Chicken biryani have to get endless. So now that we are talking about, so what is happening? We always, at every meal, we eat much more than what actually our body needs for survival. So that extra amount we call it as surplus. So surplus glucose क्या होगा? This surplus glucose will go to the liver. This surplus glucose will go to the liver and stored in the form of what? Stored as glycogen. It is stored as glycogen. What is this process called? This process is called glycogenesis. This process is called glycogenesis. But maybe now, आज तुमने chicken biryani खा लिया. अब अगले 2 दिन you are eating quite a low. Now, some people who are diet conscious, क्या करते हैं? One particular day, maybe there some festive day and all, they would eat much. And then another 5 days, they would eat very simple food and much less, as less as possible. No?
I have to do it because I overeat biryani so much I started cooking.
So now, काफी बार ऐसे होता है ना कि whenever it's a festival at home, we eat too much. And then after that, what happens? We need to put a control. So generally we don't starve, we don't fast. But yes, if I say that today I have eaten a little bit more and another 2 days I don't eat carbohydrate at all, is it not my body running short of carbohydrate? Yes. Or if I say the other way also, today after dinner, tomorrow morning I skipped my breakfast and lunch. So almost almost like 13, 14, 15 hours का जो gap हो रहा है, where I have not taken carbohydrates. So what's happening? My body is actually running short of carbohydrate. But even though we don't take carbohydrate even for a full day, still we can run, walk, talk. How is it possible? Because that liver, जो excess amount of glucose जो store करके रखा हुआ है. Again, you will say, ma'am, your time is over, you can go. So now when we are talking about this, so what's happening? That this excess amount of glucose will be broken down at the time. This excess amount of glucose will get broken down again to release the simplest form of glucose and into the circulation. So what I said, ये जो glycogen है, what is glycogen? Glycogen is a stored form of glucose. But ये कब use होगा? The stored form of glucose, where it is in the liver. ये कब use होगा? When we are not taking an adequate amount of carbohydrate. And ये almost every day हो रहा है, right from the dinner to the next breakfast, it's almost 12 hours gap. If not 12 hours, minimum 10 hours gap सबका ही होता है लगभग. So this 10 hours, क्योंकि food to digest होके from the stomach, it has moved out almost in 3-4 hours, that process is over. So in the next 6-7 hours, 8 hours, we have not taken adequate amount of carbohydrate. But next morning when you get up, you still feel energetic. Till the breakfast time, or if you skip breakfast till lunch time, you still feel quite energetic and healthy. So ये कैसे होता है possible? Because this glycogen at that time can get broken down. So in times of need, what will happen? The glycogen breaks down to glucose. Glycogen will break down to glucose. And then coming to the circulation, supply it to the muscles. And what is this process now called? This process is now called gluconeogenesis. This process is now called gluconeogenesis. These terms are important for you. Gluconeogenesis. So now this is the fate of the glucose that you have to understand. This is the fate of the glucose. No, I'm sorry. Glycogenolysis. Not glucose, that the fat part we are not talking about. Glycogenolysis. It is. Glycogenolysis. I'm not talking about the breakdown of fats. That is not gluconeogenesis. Glycogenolysis. That is. So here we are talking about the formation of glycogen, and here we are talking about the breakdown of glycogen. Okay. So this is the fate of glucose. What about the amino acids? If I have to talk about the amino acids, let us complete here that for the amino acids, we have to understand these amino acids. What will happen in due course of circulation? They will also enter into the liver. And now that they enter into the liver, this will start getting broken down. This amino acids in the liver, they will start getting broken down, and they break down to release. They break down to release urea, carbon dioxide, etc. And what is this particular process known as? There's a particular name of this process by a process known as deamination. This word you'll have to remember. Deamination. This process is known as deamination. What is deamination? The breakdown of these amino acids, the excess amino acids, which are now entering into the liver by the course of circulation. These excess amino acids will now be broken down in the liver. But now that they are breaking down now that they are getting broken down in the liver, what will happen? They undergo a process known as deamination. So deamination se kya ho raha hai? From the amino acid, carbon dioxide and urea are released as byproduct, and they get converted to some other forms. So this word deamination you will have to understand here. Lastly, we talk about the fats. So we already talked about that the fats will enter into the lymphatic system. We complete here. What about the fatty acids then? These fatty acids will enter into the lymphatic system. They will enter into the lymphatic system. From the lymphatic system, they will enter into the blood vascular system. They will also enter into the blood vascular system. And then go to the cells and tissues, and they are also capable of releasing energy, actually much faster as compared to the carbohydrates, much faster as compared to carbohydrates. So this is what you have to understand in this chapter. That is, we have already been talking about the concept of absorption, and after absorption, next one, the fate of glucose kya hai, the fate of amino acids, and the fate of fatty acids. Okay. So go through this part of the chapter, complete, padho, and the reaction that I gave you, sare equations, sare reactions, go through once. The next class again I will give you some 10-15 questions to answer from this part, along with questions of your textbook. So that should be more or less enough for this chapter. Okay? If you read, you will be able to understand concept part of the chapter or concept part powerful, which is not understood. Anything that you have to ask right now? Anything that now? Homework ये रहेगा. Complete your progress checks. At least इतना करके आओ. Complete your progress check, page 112, 113 and 114. ये जो 3 progress checks है 12, 13, 14 का वो complete करो. Done. Any doubts? So with this, once you read and come the next class, we are going to complete a few questions of this chapter. I think we are done with this chapter. And the next class, we can move on with the next chapter. What is the next chapter? Movement. Then we can move on to the next chapter. But provided you are able to answer all the questions from this chapter, so read and come.